My name is Stu Goldstein, and I am a local actor here in Denver. I've been acting in the Denver metro area since 1974. I have been in 45 stage productions, 19 indie films, and 3 commercials.
So,
And,
what's the recent event?
well, I just recently got cast without auditioning for a TV pilot that probably will be picked up by either HERE channel, or Logo channel. Both of those are gay channels that have contracted with Comcast for people to pay $6.95 extra in their subscription to get those 2 channels and all the programming and movies and sitcoms and TV shows that they have available for these people. And
So
we-
it's six. So it's like buying HBO.
exactly.
It's not internet or anything.
No,
This is over
exactly.
your cable.
Yes, exactly. Very good
There's
question.
two different
Thank you.
channels.
They're 2 different channels, and they just recently been bought by a company called Regent Entertainment. Now, I'm going to tell you a very interesting story about how all this came about, that I would be cast as the chancellor of this college in Collegetown without auditioning. Once upon a time, I went up to Boulder and answered a audition notice to help CU students. Yeah. Okay. CU students complete their projects by the end of the year with their movies that they had to make to get graded. And I went and auditioned generally for all of the students that would need somebody my age. After auditioning, I got a call from 2 directors that they needed me for 2 of their short films. One of the films had another actor in it, a short, very nice guy, young in my mind, but he was a writer, and I was his literary agent. And on the set, he told me this was his first movie and that he was nervous. He was playing the lead. So I was as nice as I could be and helped him as much as I could help him without really knowing who this guy was. It turns out that this guy's name is Corey Scher, and he is an executive with Regent Entertainment. I'm not sure if he's an assistant vice president or vice president in charge of new programming. And he lives in LA. But he has a house here, and he hangs out here, and he has a friend. His friend is a director and a screenwriter. And I believe both of them are gay. Now this screenwriter slash director, his name is Jonathan Marquez, Marquez, and he is the president of Marcor Entertainment. Marcor.
COR.
Right. Now, ironically, in March, after being frustrated, not being able to get an agent, when all of a sudden I just thought that I need one, I answered an audition ad to go to Diamond Hill buildings over there by Spear and Zuni and go through like an audition for a talent agent. That's the only way I could describe it. It was not the norm. And I went there, and I meet this guy, and he's got his cronies on left of him and the right of him, and a long table, and cameras. And I didn't have to audition. I just gave him my resume, and we talked, me sitting on the other side of a very long table. I was uncomfortable, and what we got out of the meeting was that he didn't like my resume. He thought it was too long. And that he wanted my...
How many pages is your resume?
About 8.
So your resume is 8 pages, and is it just everything you've ever done?
It's the first page is a fact sheet with a little picture of me. And, and then the next page is
In 1962, I played. In the Catskills, I played.
Good for you.
Is that what he says?
Oh, you. I thought you were telling me that you did that. No, no, no. It had a front page. It's really nice. My name, how to get in touch with me, a little picture of me, where I was born, my height, my weight, all those things really done very nicely. The second page is profile. What do you call it? When you have a lot of pictures.
Montage?
No, my
Portfolio.
well, it's it's a word they use for the pictures. Okay, so I said I already got a guy to do these headshots. So he said, well, you'd have to use our guy. So already I'm thinking, this is one of these things like the olden days where in order to get an agent, and say you had one, you had to pay money to them, then take classes that they were offering, and you got nothing in return,
Yeah.
And I never did that. I just heard about it during the years in the 70s and 80s that, I would be tossing around should I get an agent or not? I didn't like the idea of even going and getting one. And trying to get one in January and February and March were frustrating and demeaning. And I just went to see what this guy was all about. And I didn't like him. And I didn't know how he felt about me. But I walked away and didn't hear from them for weeks. And then I heard from him and he said, they were thinking of having me where they would be my agent, but we needed to talk about these bad things, these things changing my resume and stuff like that. And then weeks went by and we were supposed to have this meeting on a Saturday and I never heard from them and, and that was it. Well, it turns out that Corey Scher, who was bigger than I could even imagine in the world of TV programming, just wanted to see what it was like to get into a movie. He gets into a movie with me. I treat him really nicely and did everything I could to help him with anything I learned in the years doing this. And I never really asked him what he did in real life. Well, he takes his movie and shows it to his best friend, Jonathan Marquez, the agent that wasn't my agent. He shows him this movie. And I played this obnoxious literary agent. I was constantly screaming in the phone to Corey Scher's character, who wants to write all kinds of nice little things, and I want him to write about radioactive titties and girls that are, super, And I just go on. And there was one scene where I'm in the Starbucks in a suit with glasses on, and I start fighting with him. Okay? And, and I go, okay, fuckface. And this little 9-year-old girl is behind me. And I turn around and I take my glasses off and you think I'm going to apologize to her. And I go, hey, fuck you too. And got back on the phone and just had this horrible character. Yeah. He saw that. This Jonathan Marquez, who wrote College Town and is the director. And has brought the 26 Weeks to Hollywood to have them look it over and realize that 26 weeks are ready to go and they just want a pilot. They've never done this before. A pilot where for the first 23-minute pilot, just like it was a new TV show, with scenes, I particularly have a problem with one of the professors who seduces freshman boys. His parents give most of the money out of all the beneficiaries benefactors, they give the most money to this school, and they're the ones that got me the job as chancellor. And they have this obnoxious son that's 33 years old that drives his brand new 2007 Lexus black 2-door, I don't know what model. He drives it right up on the grass, right up to the steps of the main building, and I'm up there as the chancellor, and he's running up the steps, and I tell him to get the fucking car, put it in the back.
Have you already started shooting?
We did it.
You did the pilot, huh?
Yeah, we did it all last weekend.
Is there more stuff coming up? Or
No, we have to redo the very end of the pilot is the kids all getting together in the quad and getting beer and toasting their new freshman year, and each one's looking at the other, interested in one of the others. And I walk by as the chancellor with my coat over my thing, and they asked me to take a picture. And what you see is three, they're all lined up. First picture, second one, they're looking at different people. Third one, they also have a different expression. That's the end. But they had this crane, this 25-foot crane with this remote control camera. And we choreographed and rehearsed having everybody around the campus building walking, running, or whatever, me walking up the steps saying hello to another professor with the camera coming down. And we all had the opportunity between 3 and 5 seconds, because what you're going to see with the original music is our names that the character we're playing in our real name. And we looked in the camera and did something to do with our character, and then broke character and let everybody know who we were personality-wise as the real people. It'll all be synchronized, so you'll see, Professor Preston, played by Stu Goldstein, whatever. But then we also had 3 other quick scenes that they chose. Me looking out the window at this professor rapping with a new freshman.
Right.
Okay.
You can, if you have a question idea, go shoot.
I was just kind of thinking, asking something like to sum it up.
What? You're gonna break my heart here.
Yeah, do it in 30 seconds. Tell the whole. No, don't tell all the.
Because we're a
I'll
true
just
story.
I'll just tell you the end.
Hold on.
3 producers are going to see this pilot. They already gave the okay to the 26 episodes. They're either going to choose a new cast, or choose some of the cast, or none of them, or rewrite the whole thing and the same cast. I mean, we don't know.
So did anybody?
But this is an opportunity for 3 producers to see it, because Regent Entertainment now is the umbrella for Here and Logo. Okay? But I think what they're trying to do is get more investors and possibly have it on a more legitimate, not legitimate, but more popular.
Did they make you? Did anybody give you any encouraging signs? Anybody on the crew or whatever? Did they say, "Oh yeah, we liked what you did"?
I got an email. I've been floating for 2 days. And this Jonathan Marquez and I, we hugged each other when it was a wrap for me. And he said, I'm glad that we reconnected. Because he called me and told me that he wanted me in this pilot. And then when we met, I realized how big this thing was. I wanted to make sure that he never had to give me any notes, or it's not even a case of be sorry that he chose me. It's that at least what I could do for him is if he has to deal with these other younger people, and he did have to deal with lots of things with these younger people. First of all, they're all straight, and they're playing lesbians and guys. One guy is a macho guy that's already got, he just doesn't understand his feelings of this one other kid that's in his dorm.
Right.
And I don't know what happens in the 26 episodes, except very small things.
They paid you, I guess.
Yeah,
Yeah. And how many days? How many shoot days?
3.
3 days.
So it was $100 a shoot a day.
$100 a day. How long would you?
And I was so happy. It was a surreal. That's all I could say.
Yeah,
On
sounds
Saturday and Sunday. Sunday much better because I was in a brown. I mean, it worked out so well. My lady and I were shopping, and there was this place called Secondhand Somebody, and we walked in there without knowing we'd ever need it, and there was this tan, very, very classy tan summer suit that was sitting there for $40 from Anderson Morton, whatever, in Cherry Creek.
Hold on
And
a
I,
second. I'm just gonna check my time-lapse thing real quick, and then maybe we could switch up the shot a little bit if you
Yes.
want. So you were in roll.
Yes, roll.
High school where?
I went to high school in Brooklyn, New York.
And you.
And
Correct.
when Labor Day came around and I was going to have my senior year, start my senior year, I was graduating in January because I took summer school. I decided I didn't even want to go back. I just turned 17, and I made my mother sign me into the Army. The first Jewish boy that ever had anything like that happen to him.
Why did you want to go to the Army?
I wanted to grow up fast.
You wanted to grow up fast, so the Army was the answer. Huh?
Yeah.
So boot camp was where?
Well, it was in Fort Dix, New Jersey. But the interesting thing was, at 17, the Army recruiter came to my house in my neighborhood, and everybody all got around this U.S. Army strange-looking vehicle. And the guy came up, and he promised my mother that I would be under a program called Choice, Not Chance, which was the slogan back in '63. And what you did was, you had a choice of where you wanted to go overseas. You had a choice of what your military occupational specialty, or MOS, would be. And being 17 years old and 3.5 years in high school, I wanted to learn electronics, so I got a guarantee that I would go to an Air Force base where Army personnel are, right across the Hudson River in Palisades, New Jersey, on a radar site for the North American Air Defense Command. That was my guarantee. Choice, not chance.
So, did that happen?
No, because when you're 17 years old, you need to have a 35-year-old brain in order to be able to match the things that go on in the U.S. Army. What happened was, a paratrooper came and called us all out to be having a meeting with him on the grassy area near the mess hall. And he was in his jump boots, which paratroopers are the only ones that were allowed to have their pants tucked in. And he was a pretty slick guy. And he was telling all of us schmucks how women love paratroopers. What it would be like walking down the streets of Manhattan with jump boots on. And he asked all of us if we were man enough to take his PT test. So I raised my hand because I was in high school. I was on the track team. I thought I was in shape. So I said, yes, I would love to take his PT test. But 2 weeks went by where it was raining and we were in pup tents in basic training, and I had enough. It was now October and it was cold and rainy, and I really didn't want to be doing anything to have anything to do with the infantry, which is what paratroopers were. So I had the opportunity, like everybody else, to see the sergeant again in my 7th week, and I told him I wasn't interested in taking his PT test. But little did I know that what that did was it nullified the Army's commitment to me on my radar training, because obviously I showed some overt indication that I wanted something else. So I wound up
just by
taking the PT test. So
just by agreeing to do it, you're saying?
yeah, to take the PT test.
Right.
Once you took the PT test, they would say, you did pass, you didn't pass, do you want to go to jump school? Right. All right. And so I wound up being unassigned. And whenever you're unassigned, the Army will put you in the infantry, because that's where they need you the most. And I had to go through another 8 weeks of infantry training, and now it was December. And it was now time to graduate and to be sent overseas. The Vietnam War wasn't on yet. It was 1963. Kennedy had just gotten assassinated. And I didn't want to go to Korea, but I did want to go to Hawaii. And I knew that I was going to go overseas whether I liked it or not, because
So ultimately, what did you choose?
Hawaii,
Hawaii. What's the base there?
Schofield Barracks.
Tell me a little about that place.
It doesn't matter. They sent me to Alaska.
So you didn't go to Hawaii.
No,
So you
I went
never
to-
saw Schofield Barracks.
no. But I did see Fort Wainwright, north of Fairbanks. Getting up there on January 20th, I think it was 50-something below zero. The sun was only out for a few hours, and I was absolutely miserable. It was the first time I ever flew at 17, so I went from Fort Dix to Seattle, Washington, and stayed there for a few days, and then was told to go up to Alaska. And I wound up being in the infantry up there. And it was a very unusual mission. In 1963, our biggest enemy was Russia.
Oh yeah,
And
Alaska's right up there.
right up there in the Straits of Alaska, on a cold day, you can drive, in the middle of the winter, you can drive tanks from Siberia right into the west edge of Alaska. And we had the Alaskan National Guard. The Alaskan National Guard made up of Eskimos that lived on the shoreline and would monitor the Russians' activities, because you could see the other side of the shoreline. My mission up there as an infantryman was to try to stop a Russian army using one brigade of guerrillas with all kinds of tactics to hold off an army while people were moving on from Alaska into Canada, and to have a defensive line. And that was what our mission was. So we'd be on skis, we would be on snowshoes, we would be in camouflage, we would do infantry tactics that you wouldn't think anybody would do at that cold of a temperature. We would retreat. We would learn how to retreat, and then have these track vehicles that were water tanks, pouring water right down and making it a sheet of ice, so they couldn't drive their tanks up. And just learning guerrilla warfare in Arctic warfare, which I hated because I was only about 140 pounds. I didn't like the cold. When I got up there, they were all getting ready for a big operation called Polar Siege, where they take the Arctic soldiers and bring them up to the north, to the Arctic Circle, and then have soldiers from the United States go up to Fairbanks, one being the friendly forces, and we being the aggressor, acting like Russians coming across en masse.
How big is a brigade?
A brigade is about 12 companies. It's like, not 12 companies, 4 battalions would make up a brigade. And a battalion would have A company, B company, C company, and headquarters company. So 4 times 4, 16. Yeah, thousands. But we expected a Russian invasion that would be divisions. And we would try to bog them down in the tundra and in the hills. The area that we trained was the actual area that we would probably be coming across to slow them down, to stop them. We would go on every 6 weeks. Our company would sit in the barracks for a week with live ammunition and everything real, waiting for what they call sledgehammer, which would mean the first company to get in as close as possible to the advancing army, to slow them down until the rest of us would come to slow them down. But it would be a suicide. I mean, you really weren't going to make it very long, but as long as you could make it until the rest of the people were mobilized. So we'd sit there.
Who comprised that group?
Once every 6 weeks, another company would be on sledgehammer, and they would be on alert. And you couldn't go anywhere. You had to sit in the barracks. And at some point during those 7 days, they would call a sledgehammer, and that meant that we had to jump into the armored personnel carriers with all of the mortars and heavy weapons and start going into the tundra, the hills north of Fairbanks, where we would hope to stall them until everybody's evacuated. And so before Vietnam, that was the worst tour of duty that you can get. And when I was on my way up there were 12 other guys with me, all being assigned to Fort Wainwright. And it turns out that we all have something in common. One guy dropped out of OCS, Officer Candidate School. One guy was thrown out of OCS. One guy went to jump school but didn't jump. One guy
Really?
did, yeah. It was
What, he
all
got
the
on
misfits.
plane and just couldn't jump, like that kind of thing?
Yeah, chickened out. Okay, or guys like me that said we want to be it and then said we don't want to be it. Okay, and when we get into this auditorium, the first sergeant gives us this little speech about all through the military history, all the duds was sent to the Northern Front. You know, Caesar did it. Hitler did it. So fucking, you know, everybody goes to the Northern Front. That's a messes up, or causes paperwork, or does anything.
Really?
Yeah, and they needed to fill it up with infantrymen. The ones that they would take are the guys that did everything wrong. Paperwork at the Pentagon, you know. Guys like me, there were a bunch of guys like me that didn't even go as far as taking the PT test.